You're listening to the House of Cards on the Big Patriot Radio Network. All music on this podcast and radio network are purchased under all applicable licenses by the Big Patriot Radio Network.
Introducing to you.
You're on House of Cards, live on Facebook and YouTube.
It's going down.
Locked and loaded with the truth.
And good evening, everybody. Gosh, what happened to the camera? There we go. Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Thursday once again. My name is Mike Covert. Glad to have you here on our 100 and something, I don't know, episode, 105th, 107th, something like that, of the Beaufort County House of Cards. Glad to see everybody here. Welcome in from Facebook. 2 channels on Facebook, YouTube, and X. So we're glad to have you here. Don't forget, we also have folks listening in on our simulcast on bigpatriotradio.com. That is bigpatriotradio.com. Yeah, you can listen to it on your laptop, on your iPad, on Amazon Alexa. You can listen to it on Roku TV. You can go onto the website, hit the little 3 little dots up in the upper corner, and put a widget on your screen of your phone and listen to it on demand that way. Put it in the car or the truck or the boat. You can have us with you 24/7, the best in blues, news, classic rock, and country pop. That is Big Patriot Radio. No need to listen to terrestrial radio anymore. Get into the digital broadcasting method. Did you know we have 5 nights a week? We have podcasts, and a big announcement this week because we have a new number one. After almost 2 years, that Corey Allen, my good friend Corey Allen, and the Overton Report have been a stalwart in the number one spot on podcasts. That has been broken. That's right. The new number one podcast is yours truly, the Beaufort County's House of Cards, right here on Facebook and YouTube and on bigpatriotradio.com. Coming in second is our Wednesday night show, and that is Corey Allen and the Overton Report. Monday nights, we've got David Cox and his son with New American Movement on Saturdays. We have Ann Ubellis and the Southern Sense radio show. And Sundays at 7, we have Andrew Southwick and Culture Crossroads. So this past week, Dr. Feelgood by Motley Crue, that's got to be like 1986, 87, somewhere in there. Maybe 85. That was the number one most requested song this week on the charts here on bigpatriotradio.com. We had a 3-way tie for the lead. Defusky Island, with again setting record numbers. Hilton Head and Bluffton all tied for the most number of listeners all week long. Greenville, Beaufort, and Hardyville right there in coming up behind. Huge viewership last week, and we greatly appreciate it. If you are on Facebook, please go and like the page. Like the page, Beaufort County's House of Cards. And if you want to search for Big Patriot Radio, do that too. You should have an easy link. Like that one too. And if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. That helps us, I guess, the folks at YouTubeville see that, and it gives you legitimacy in the world of digital broadcasting. Ring the little bell so you get all the latest announcements that we have, and then don't forget to download as a favorite bigpatriotradio.com. This show is, as always, is free, but if you want to help the show out, keep guests coming, keep shows coming, equipment coming, feel free to chip along something there at the Venmo account at the bottom of the screen. You can send stars. Probably it must be the most easiest way to do it, because a lot of people do that now through Facebook. You can do that, and we're not. I don't think we're qualified yet in YouTube, but I guess that happens. I'm not really sure, but we'll see as time goes on. But we are so grateful for those who do help us. Grateful for those that will, and we have got a huge show tonight. So sit down, 2 bowls of popcorn, an ice cold one or 4. Strap in that chair because it's going to be a crazy ride.
Locked and loaded.
go.
Big Patriot Radio. Blues, news, country pop, and classic rock.
And again, we do have a big show for you tonight. Have a special guest coming on. Our guest is back there in the green room. She is primping right now with a nice glass of Chablis and some brownies that we've made. We'll get her on here in just a second. You see, if you study, deep study, and I have them hanging back here on the wall above the signs, you study the Declaration of Independence and the Federalist Papers, just to name two, you're going to see that these founding fathers knew the power would be the root of the disease in this new land they were creating. These people knew this. They knew that this power needed to be kept in check, or this new country would possibly turn into what they all had just left, Great Britain or France of that time. And again, that's why they left to begin with. Unfettered, unchecked power. Taxes, you name it. Slowly but surely, level by level, generation by generation, the power tree, as I call it, is continuing to grow. That tree is continuing to grow. It has branches, many branches on this tree. Some of those branches are named socialist. Some branches are named Marxist. Some branches are named anarchist, and others. And there's more and more branches, and so on and so on. We find ourselves here on a local level at several, let's call them sub-branches, or maybe an offshoot of a branch, whatever that is in arborist language. Unfortunately, those are so diseased. They're so diseased that they remain healthy because of the disease. That disease is called corruption. It can be stopped. You just either have to prune those trees, cut those branches back, maybe cut out the disease, graft it, I don't know. Maybe fertilize those trees with good and just. There's a quote that I have, and I just love it. I hope you can write this down. It's a great quote. For those of you who are watching, or for those of you watching who are in politics, and especially those few who are watching who are part of the corrupt cabal, and oddly enough, there are a few of you right now watching, this is especially for you. And this quote goes like this: true power requires modesty and empathy, not force and coercion. That's by Dr. Keltner. One more time, true power requires modesty and empathy, not force and coercion. That's tonight's opening.
All the wickedness and filth this world has to offer.
Yeah.
Rock music that shatters your bones. Big Patriot Radio.
That's some serious rock.
And you're responsible.
All right, we have a special guest on here tonight. Going to bring her on here in just a second. My good friend, whom I have known, I don't know how long I've known her. I've known her for a long time. I have had the opportunity to speak at her club meetings she has, even at her request, in a couple of public gatherings over the course of years. And as a former business owner and retired New York City law enforcement officer, and a political activist and commentator. Her podcast, Southern Sense, which is heard right here on Big Patriot Radio on Saturdays at 7 o'clock, bigpatriotradio.com, and a host of other networks. She has had featured speakers like former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, Judge Jeanine Pirro. I'd love to have her on. And recently, Trump advisor Peter Navarro. There's been a whole host of others. Those are just some headliners. She is founder of the original Buford Tea Party. Please join me in welcoming the radio chickadee, Ann Ubellis. Hey, Ann.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It is so good to see you and have you on here tonight. How have you been?
I am busier than one-armed paper hanger.
That's great. We're so glad to have your show on our network on Saturdays at 7 o'clock. It's interesting when I go back and I can look and see, how many people, how many eyes, and how many this and that are on. Like this one, you have people tuning in from all over the place, literally like all over the place. How many years have you been at that?
Oh, wow. We started the Tea Party 2009. I started this a year later in 2010. So that brings it over 14 years.
Wow. And how many networks are you on? Because I think you're on like iHeart and Apple and stuff like that, aren't you?
I don't even know. One of these days I have to sit down and see where the feed goes. Because, it is up on iTunes, Apple, iHeart. I've been loading them up now to Spotify. I'm on Facebook in 2 or 3 different places, up on X, LinkedIn, Twitch. I sometimes post stuff up to Instagram. I mean, but I don't know. I don't know. They can always go to my webpage for the show also to see where I'm at and to catch the archives, which is the name of the show, Southern Sense, as in common sense, .net.
So that's southernsense.net.
Correct.
Perfect. Awesome. And, some people, I know when I first met you years ago, and I knew you were a retired law enforcement officer. I still have people who have mentioned, are you sure she was a law enforcement? I'm like, look, you better toe the line because Ann will give it to you. She'll give it to you. And
I got the scars to prove it.
Yeah, I say that to, just say thank you for your service.
Thank you.
You and I have been talking for several weeks over email and so forth. I've been putting this together. You had, let me back up just a second. For full disclosure, you and I had some interaction when I was on county council. That's probably when I first met you, and you have continued to be a public figure in front of county council, stating not only complaints but the good and the bad. I mean, you have been a stalwart for the community, letting county council know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, which I admire, and I thank you for that. I always appreciated hearing that. You and I may not, I really don't know, agree 100% on everything, but the last time I checked, there was something that we do agree on, and that is about keeping America great and making America great again. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it starts at the grassroots level. It starts with people out there listening, just contacting their local government official, even if it's the dog catcher, either to say thank you or to point out a need or a problem. And it starts at the grassroots level because as these people advance in their political careers, they climb the ladder. And if you don't control it locally, then they're going to get away with it when they climb that ladder. And this is the problem we have. People have not been paying attention. They have not exercised their vote. They have not exercised their voice enough. And I beg them, if you're going to go to vote, bring people with you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go alone. Bring people, at least one person, preferably up to 5. But also don't ignore the down ballot issues. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones they slip past you and they end up passing. And you go, I didn't know I'm paying this much in sales tax suddenly. Well, did you vote for or against the tax referendum? I didn't know there was a referendum on the ballot. Yeah. We've got to inform them. And this is something that, I wrote an editorial that was in the Beaufort Insider. It should be appearing soon in Bluffton Today and another newspaper. I forget which, but it will start up here in the first 2 weeks of October because our early voting here in October starts October 21.
That's right. Which is, and now I can get forward to where I was. We, Annie and I have been talking for some time about this document that she put together, and it is an excellent document. It's almost a play-by-play of what are we seeing here locally. And if you listened, ladies and gentlemen, if you listen to the monologue, so to speak, you're going to see how this all ties together. The power tripping, the things that are happening, and why are they happening. So the title of Ann's document is Can We Trust Them Anymore? I mean, it's simple. It's as simple as that. It is a fantastic document. I want you and I to kind of go through these bullet points, if you will, that I kind of broke this into. First, the topic that created, at least in my opinion, Ann, that created this entitlement is about the 1% transportation sales proposed tax that came up by county council for a mere $1.62 billion. And then they whittled it down to a measly $950 million. And I say all that tongue in cheek. Question number one in your document: can we trust them? Explain, and if you would only go as far as the things on question one that you were talking about.
Wow. We have a county council that has allegations that have been made against various members of the county government of misappropriations of funds and of services. And they then said it because the public kept on saying, what's going on? We're seeing the newspaper printing about these allegations, people using the county credit card for non-county business. There was one county employee that ordered these weighted blankets that no one really needed, and no one authorized it. And they suddenly just disappeared and then reappeared. And it seemed a family member was the person that was the procurement agent of the company. So there was a question of who's getting the commission. There was a lot of questions out there. There's another county government member who used county assets to work on his personal property. I'm sorry, county equipment should be on county property, not your own personal home. And the list went on. So we kept on crying for an investigation, kept on crying. And county council finally said, yes, we'll do an investigation. So they hired these attorneys to investigate. Well, it turns out county council hired the attorneys, not the county government. Therefore, attorney-client privilege is being called attached. So the county council is not letting out this 34-page report because it's attorney-client privilege. Yet, county tax dollars paid for that report. So therefore, it is the county that should be deemed the client, and the full report should be released. And the county sheriff has also called for it to release. God bless PJ Tanner for calling that out. And if there's criminal action, there should be an investigation and ramifications for those criminal actions.
So we have, as we're gonna get deeper into this. My particular show has been almost weekly as these things have come up. We have been hammering the living daylights on this. So I'm glad to see there are others as well. Question number two.
Before we leave one, because there's an article that appeared yesterday and was updated today in the Island Packet Beaufort Gazette about a county official who quietly named himself acting chief financial officer before the new county administrator could take office. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, this is the person in charge of all the county funds, right? And appropriations and so forth. Meanwhile, we have an investigation concerning appropriations, and you have a county employee who names himself the chief financial officer, and he does not have the qualifications. He does not have that bachelor's degree in accounting. He does not have a degree in county administration. And yet this employee decided he's going to control the dollars.
That's right. And we're gonna dig into that a little bit. Each of these we're going to dig into. The second part, or the second bullet point of your document, most people don't even realize that county council is including projects, and I'm speaking directly of this 1% proposed referendum sales tax. They don't realize that county council is including projects that were already in the 2018 sales tax referendum, but they were never done. I can attest to that. I was there when that took place and when it didn't take place. Actually, about 75% of those 2018 projects, and you concurred with that, have never been done. Yet they come back asking for more money. And how preposterous is this? And how can anyone that is logical in thought actually say, "Thank you, may I have another"?
Just double dipping. They're putting the very same projects, and actually the number comes down to close to less than 20% of the projects had been completed from the 2018 transportation sales tax. Some projects are still in the pre-design stage and design stage. Now they're saying COVID caused this, and then cost increases caused this, and then contractors. Wait a minute. Number one, pre-design and design, you can use Zoom. You don't have to be face to face. Get those done at least, and then put out the contracts for bidding. But we don't even know who bid on any of these contracts. We have nothing put before us. And the ones that are still under construction are a mere handful. And don't get me started about the U-turn to nowhere on Sea Island Parkway in front of Walmart. A friend of mine didn't believe me. Exited the Walmart, crossed over Sea Island Parkway, drove to where the road bend around, came back out onto Sea Island Parkway to the back of Taco Bell, and the two roads were less than a quarter mile apart. They went to nowhere. How many billions of dollars did they put on that, plus the projects that included multiple use walkways and bikeways? Now, who's going to go down that U-turn to nowhere? But they put in walkways and bikeways to U-turn to nowhere.
It's unreal.
It gets better. Yeah, I mean, it gets better. And
go ahead.
Go ahead, because they took out the project in Hilton Head 5B, and yet now 5B is put back into this also.
Right.
So they promise people they're not going to do this, and then they turn that back and do that, and then reimagine Rebuild, which everyone said no to.
That I was going to ask you about that. Not living in northern Beaufort County, I know what's going on there, but when I hear things like reimagine Rebo, my head starts to spin because I started thinking about like Kamala Harris and reimagining all of the bluster she speaks of. What is exactly reimagining Rebo Road? I mean, that's a main thoroughfare. And I think as you put in your document, I mean, I go right to emergency services. Is reimagining emergency services, or what exactly does that mean?
Someone came up with the brilliant idea to slow traffic down on Rebo and make it more pedestrian friendly. Now, for those that are listening that don't know Rebo Road, we live on the Sea Islands. I'm on Ladies Island, and in order to get onto the city of Beaufort and the mainland, there's only two bridges: the Woods Memorial Bridge and the McTier Bridge. Woods Memorial will take you straight into downtown, and you can go just about anywhere. But if you go over the McTier Bridge, you end up on Rebo Road. If you're coming in from Hilton Head, from Bluffton, from Religion, from any of the areas south, in order to get into Beaufort, you must come up Rebo Road. Now, the Woods Bridge went down back in April. When it went down for 4 hours, people were stuck literally in bumper-to-bumper traffic on Rebo Road in both directions up to 6 hours.
Wow.
Imagine now if we had the hurricane just coming through, right? Imagine if that road had been narrowed and people could not get out. Hospital is on there. So in order to get an ambulance, you've got a one lane in either direction with the divider they can't jump over. So how does emergency services get to either side and redirect traffic?
So is that what they want to take and right now it is it's 2 lanes each way with a divider. They want to take, I'm assuming what you're saying is they want to get that down to 1 lane each way and then add walking paths. Is that the gist of it?
Walking and biking paths, and then put greenery in the center. So people, in order to cross over, they've got to go up to the next intersection and make a U-turn. Do you know how dangerous this is and how many broadsides there will be for people that are, hey, all of a sudden you U-turn in front of me?
Yeah. Who is supporting this?
That is kind of like a little hazy who's behind it. I mean, I didn't see the original documentation, but I saw, and I went to some of the meetings where they had all these beautiful charts and everything else.
Sure.
And we had them pull the project. All right, the project was pulled. Now it's back in the sales tax. A very dangerous project that will cost lives. Not maybe, it will cost lives.
Has DOT, not that I really believe anything they come up with lately, but have they chimed in on this reimagining Rebo?
I don't know. I don't know if these I'm going to say clowns, whoever put this together, had talked to anyone, because a lot of the projects in the 2018 did not get state and federal money because they didn't meet the requirements. So you put the projects together without finding out what the requirements are in order to get those state and federal funds. You go to them after you put this together.
Yeah.
No, you go before,
Right.
and you find out what you need to do. So when you build the projects, it's cost effective and it's efficient, and you can get those funds. They did it bass backwards.
Well, that's par for the course with this bunch. You had mentioned Bluffton Parkway Phase 5B over here in my neck of the woods, and that has been an enormous pain point. And it seems, for those folks who are watching or whoever this way, it seems like they're following whomever is in office. I know prior to me, Catherine Bench was against it. I got in office. I was against it. Logan Cunningham, this is prior to the redistricting. I know he was against it. I don't know if he is now or not, to be quite honest with you.
He's now for it.
Oh, he's now for it. Awesome. Paula Brown is against it. I don't know about Ms. Tabernick.
She's sitting on the fence. She's for it 1 minute, and the next minute she's against it.
That's the kind of thing that bothers me, is that they are playing literally playing politics with this, waiting to get the right mix to be able to force this through. And people do not want this. They do not want it. But let me go forward to the third point. In totality, let's talk about the HSB, and that's Hainsworth Sinclair Boyd. Now, we have reported here in the House of Cards at great length about this HSB report. So I want to tear this thing apart with you. First, the report being read to the public by the attorney. His last name is Nicholson, months and months ago, whenever it was. It was a horrible job of theater. Typically, lawyers do a good job. That's part of their course load is theater. It was terrible. And I mean, seriously, these people need to do a better job if they're going to try to bullshit us all the time. The HSB report, as you mentioned, it is 36 pages in length. It took months and months and months for Chairman Joe Passament to release a document called the summary report. Still not the whole document. Now, he said back when this was going on, hey, well, and I don't have his verbatim here with me, but he said, we're going to release it. We want to be transparent. He said that several times, how transparent he wants to be. He wants to be the transparent chairman. But he's not releasing the whole document. And he released the summary report. And prior to releasing the summary report, which, by the way, I know you already know this, it's filled with data that is already codified, some data that's codified in language of county ordinance. It's already in there. Now, they may not be adhering to it, as you and I both know. When it comes to procurement, they don't follow the rules. They have not been following the rules, but it's the summary report has it in there like this is some premonition. We're going to make changes. Well, it's already in ordinance. The interesting thing, Ann, is the chairman allowed council members only at his invitation, so I'm being told from inside the county office buildings, at his invitation to read portions of the report under security cameras in the executive conference room. That's the first thing I want to throw to you. The second thing is, during this time, and again, this was, we were tipped off to this by someone in the IT department, that the clerk to county council was stopped in the parking lot by the county attorney's office and told to come back inside. This is a quitting time, and delete the report in its entirety from her hard drive and her office computer. What say you on those things?
Destruction of evidence. That's a felony. You're tampering with evidence. If criminal acts have been committed, an investigation has been done, and they have been found out, and that evidence is not turned over to the proper law authority, that's destruction of evidence. That's aiding and abetting criminal acts. That's a federal crime.
Do you think that has been talked about at any level with these people, whether they're elected officials or bureaucrats? I mean, just a smidgen of conversation about that?
Nope. Nope. Matter of fact, the first thing we learned in the police academy is handling evidence, chain of custody. So now chain of custody is also in question.
So the document, again, it's 34, 36 pages in length. We know from, obviously we hit a nerve from feedback. We know that not all county council members were allowed to see it. Then the rest were invited to come see it, but they had to see it there was parameters given. The county council, I guess they don't get it that, this has been done under the cloak of darkness, in the secrecy of the night, behind closed doors. We had 3 council members speak out and say, this summary report, we need to talk about this in public. We don't need to go in executive session and talk about it. How egregious, Ann, is the abuse of executive session being done by Beaufort County Council chair and vice chair?
That's a thing I cannot answer because, as you said, it is in secret. You don't know what the heck is going on, what they are discussing. Sometimes they're called at spur of the moment. I mean, there's no public agenda posted, nothing discussed with the public. Public has no idea. And these are your county officials doing things behind closed doors, behind your back, that may have possibly criminal consequences. I mean, again, it's our tax dollars that paid for this report. The report should have been released in its entirety. And criminal acts had been done, should be turned over to the sheriff for investigation. And maybe possibly one of us should start contacting our state attorney general. If this government has committed such malfeasance, if people stole from the county, taxpayers and voters, it should be exposed. If money has been moved into places it should not have been moved, and cronyism is evident in some areas, it should be exposed. We need to flush this government out. And folks, this is why voting is so important. You think, county council, school board, that's not important. Yes, they are. That's your tax dollars. Even if you don't have kids in school, that's your tax dollars. That's your community. Those kids, when they graduate, are going to be your community. If you don't graduate quality kids, you're not going to have a quality community.
That's right.
You got to be involved in everything.
So when I say this out, we reached out to HSB and asked for a copy sent in the verbiage that I use, and I happen to be the one that did it. I used the verbiage that since we paid for it, I would like a copy. And I got the stumbling, bumbling, and I couldn't believe it, but I actually got put through to this Nicholson guy who spoke at county council. And I could tell you've done interviews with people on a law enforcement level. You have the education. You know when somebody's feeding you a lot of bullshit, okay, as a law enforcement officer. So this guy was stumbling, mumbling, fumbling, stuttering to get his words out. But basically he said, attorney-client privilege, and I would need to contact a lawyer if I want to do anything about it. So, okay. So the interesting fun fact about this is I went backwards and started looking at meetings and notes from people inside the county that I have. When this was presented to county council way back, one of the council members asked the county attorney as to why they were hiring a legal firm to begin with. Rather, let's hire a forensic auditor, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, the county attorney advised almost point blank that no, these people, this Hainsworth, Sinkler, Boyd, have all of the needed in-house people. I mean, painted this very beautiful picture that they handle it all. They do such a good job. It's well-rounded. And they're experts about it. And county council listened. They were duped because once they signed the document Once they did the deed with this law firm is where the attorney-client privilege came into play. Now, this is another example, and I've been saying this since 2016. This is another reason why county council needs its own attorney, its own representation, because county council is the representatives of you and I, of our listeners. They represent us. They don't represent the government. The county attorney's office is employed by the bureaucratic system. Their best interests are those of the county, not the citizen, not casting a stone, not throwing a dagger. It is what it is. That's how it works. So the people's representatives should have their own counsel and legal representation. If they had that, they probably would have got tripped up and we wouldn't be in this position. But would you believe, and I know the answer to this, the county attorney's office and the county council chairman and vice chairman are saying, no, we can't have our own. We don't do that. We can't do that, that's a whole nother story. We'll get to that later. We have been pushing, more and more time goes forward about the whole situation of who represents who. As of late, the county attorney's office put it in writing that they kind of split, not literally, but figuratively. They chose A and B to represent county council, and county attorney B or C and D to represent the county, which is totally flabbergasting. The same office is people are supposed to believe that the same office is going to represent two masters. It's absolutely insane. Yet the county attorney, the county council continues to go along with this game. The final straw that really struck was when the county attorney's office told a county council member who told me, actually it was more than one, it was three, who told me that the county attorney office said, well, we can't release the privilege even if you vote. Why is that? Because all 11 of you would have to vote unanimously. I checked with Jay Bender, widely known as probably one of the smartest legal minds in this state when it comes to media, FOIA, county governments, about this unanimous, think about that, unanimous vote to clear the privilege. My assumptions were turned out to be exact, that there are two forms of voting: majority, 50% plus one, or supermajority, and in this case, it would be 2/3. There is no such thing as a unanimous vote to clear the privilege. Have you heard that yet? And can you believe that that's where they're going? That is the county's legal definition to us and the council?
You're exactly correct. Exactly correct. And this is what they've told the other council members, and they all are falling in lockstep with it. What's even worse is that the chair has had private discussions with several members and told them it's an ethics violation if they are either promoting the sales tax or opposing it publicly. Mm-hmm. They can only express their vote, but they can't do or say anything either for or against. And yet, in 3 meetings I was at before county council, in 3 comment sessions I did, a council member sitting there in front of me, being recorded on the meeting, would say, well, if you don't vote for this sales tax referendum, we're going to raise your property tax. That's a threat. That is publicly stating you support the sales tax, and if you don't vote for it, we're going to penalize you by raising your property tax. Well, my answer to that is, number one, you just did an ethics violation, $10,000, bing. Mm-hmm. Number 2, go ahead, raise my property tax, because the amount of money I would pay in a property tax increase per household is probably 1/10 of what I would pay in a sales tax over 10 years. Mm-hmm. But I'm on a win-win side then.
Right. But as you and I, as we work in our world, I sat there. Matter of fact, I watched the meeting that where you spoke, and I saw that. And let's call them out. I mean, that was Councilwoman Tabernick and Councilman Mark Lawson. And I didn't hear Councilman
Logan Cunningham.
Okay,
Logan Cunningham.
okay. So I've had many people say that, but I can't find it. But anyway,
And Passamonte also.
oh well, with that goes without saying. If you don't, I still I start getting like, I don't know, apoplectic when I can replay Tabernick's comments that if you don't do this, we will do that. I mean, that's, what does this say? What do they call it in Latin? Nunc pro tunc or something like that in Latin. You do this, I do that, quid pro quo, all that kind of stuff. That is horse manure to threaten the citizens that if you don't vote for this, we're going to raise your property taxes. So while you say, hey, that's actually a win, but the process and the procedure, that is a enormous ethics violation. And you said that's a $10,000 smack.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how it could get any more egregious than that.
Right.
I just don't. I don't see it. And let me come back to that. That just gets my blood boiling.
Oh, just an aside here. I do have another interview on another show at 8:30, so I have to bug out a little early.
All right, you tell me. Give me a wink or something, and I'll let you know. This week, Matthew Hall wrote an opinion piece to the state newspaper. Generally, I'm not a fan of mainstream media. The state usually is a rag, in my opinion. But this is actually a good opinion piece, and it was entitled "The Secret Report: Beaufort County Won't Let You See and Won't Be the Last Word on Misdeeds." And his opening sentence, if you didn't see this, was the cat's meow. It said, quote, "Show me a more secretive county council in South Carolina than Beaufort County's. You can't," end quote. He writes, basically his opinion was that this report about an outside investigation into 5 years of financial shenanigans wasn't bad enough. There's even new reasons to distrust Beaufort County. It goes so on and so forth about the cost. Councilman Reitz mentioned that it is probably approaching or north of $400,000 when it was supposed to be $350K. State law. This isn't him, this is me. State law says that an institution's financial or administrative records are not exempt from public disclosure. I know you know that. And then we have media lawyer guru, as I mentioned, Jay Bender, whom we've quoted on this show. He said, quote, "There is nothing that would justify the Beaufort County Council in withholding spending records, period." How come, and someone like the 14th Circuit solicitor, and if he doesn't have the balls, I guess send it to somebody, one of his buddies, like they did with Murdoch. How come somebody has not picked this up and said, this needs an investigation? What does it take, Ann? You're in law enforcement. What does it take to get somebody to grow the pair to be able to say, we are going to investigate you?
Well, first off, I was a street cop, so I wasn't in investigation. I was just a regular beat cop. But it needs people like you and I to reach out, probably to Tanner's office or to, oh, good Lord,
Duffy Stone
and the Attorney General. I just had him at the meeting. I've known him for years. Alan Wilson, thank you. Thank you.
It happens.
I'm sorry. A couple of brain farts. But we're going to have to get together and just start inundating their offices. Investigate. And I think if enough of us do that, finally someone will get up off their butt and do it. And it takes people like you and me to write the letters, people listening to also take up their pens. Your pens are your swords, and put it to paper and help us do a letter campaign with these investigative offices.
That's a great way to put it. Your pens are your swords. That is an excellent way to title what people need to be doing. Your pen is your sword. Not everybody is a public speaker. Not everybody wants to put your face on a podcast, but a pen can be a very mighty sword. That's a great point. This particular, and I'll let you go here in just a second. This particular,
no, I can stay for a little bit longer. I don't have to be there until 8:30.
This opinion piece goes on to say that even if the argument is made that releasing the report, this would be the HSB report, requires waiving, and I talked about this, waiving the attorney-client, but nothing in state law, nothing in the model rules of parliamentary procedure, nothing that I could find in the Jeffersonian rules of parliamentary procedure. I couldn't find anything in the Freedom of Information handbooks, nothing from the South Carolina Association of Counties FOIA handbooks. Nothing says unanimous. Jay Bender backs that up in saying that is preposterous. How do we, aside from you or I or other podcasters just letting them have it, what is the next step? Because that is a bold face. And I know nowadays, you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings by calling them a liar, but that is a bold-faced lie. But county council just nods their head and goes along with it. I just don't understand.
Well, up in Charleston, they have a similar referendum with similar things in it. And an individual, along with a group, have filed a lawsuit. So if we can find ourselves in a law firm that would be willing to represent the citizens of Beaufort County, the tax-paying, voting citizens of Beaufort County, and act with us in a class action suit against county council, maybe the records would be released.
Would you agree that probably would have to come from the farthest corner of the state? Because this county, when it comes to courts and lawyers, I know when I was on council, my God, it was amazing the number of lawyers that they had contracts with. Everybody was entangled. I mean, to me, it seemed like you would have to go far, far away to get somebody that wasn't wrapped up in some branch of Beaufort County.
Well, if someone out there is listening and knows a law firm that's willing to take up the case, I think we can get enough people together to say, hey, represent us.
So what do you think about, you had mentioned earlier, PJ Tanner. PJ Tanner came out, the sheriff, he came out and said very poignantly, and I mean, there was no, I got to decipher this kind of crap. PJ Tanner was pissed. PJ Tanner asked for that report. That was a professional courtesy, in my opinion. That was a professional courtesy. And the county council chairman said no. County administrator said no. PJ Tanner's, he's a little pissed off. Is this something that he can continue, or because it's a professional courtesy thing, does he have to back off? What's your feeling about that?
I don't know what the legal steps he has, whether or not he can initiate an investigation on his own without the report, just getting people to come in and either give him testimony, people that need are writing articles that have some knowledge, at least help him, put him in a direction. Is there someone he can work with to get a subpoena to force them to release the records? These are all questions. I don't know how the county law works. I can tell you, New York, I'd walk up to the detective and all right, fine, this is in my lap. Detective, do your job, and I go back out. Right. We need someone who is a detective to say, all right, fine, I need X, Y, Z, and this is how we have to go about it.
There's been other cases, not exactly like this, but similar, because, we don't have a district attorney. There's no DA. It goes to the solicitor, but the solicitor is partially funded by county council. The sheriff is funded by county council. And I back in 2016, I didn't see that nasty web. Now it's crystal clear. Whereas these people go, well, I don't want to say anything because they write my budget, or the lion's share of my budget comes from them. So I don't know where I was going with that is I don't know if the solicitor, Duffy Stone, has to be the one to say, this should be investigated, but I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to turn it over to David Pasco, for example, or some other solicitor in the state. But I think I think what you're saying is exactly correct, that because we all come from a melting pot of handling this in a different way, and this way here is probably the worst. We just have to make that call. Mr. Solicitor, this needs to be investigated. I know you're not going to do it. I know he's not going to do it because he gets the lion's share of his funding comes from Beaufort. Turn it over to someone that will. Don't you think?
It's a good possibility. I mean, I don't know all the solicitors in the area. I know Duffy Stone because he came to the meeting with Alan Wilson. Mm-hmm. A matter of fact, I'm letting people know that the Beaufort Tea Party is meeting this coming Monday at the Ladies Island Country Club, and specifically we will be discussing this sales tax and tactics in which we can get editorials into the newspaper, taking out half-page ads just prior to the start of early voting, sign waving, any way that you think that you want to help participate in our protest against the sales tax. I'm willing to have people show up that have never come before just to toss ideas at us. And as a group, we did this once before. Remember, we did kill a sales tax. I took out those half-page ads. We organized south of the Broad and north of the Broad sign wavings on heavy days. We had cars honking and waving, giving thumbs up, and we killed that referendum. 75% of the voters said no. We need to do that again.
And when is your meeting? This coming Monday?
This coming Monday at Ladies Island Country Club.
At what time?
5:30 to 7:30. It's posted up on the Facebook page for the Beaufort Tea Party group. So they can go there, click on it, and find the details. Also, the article, the editorial that you've been talking about, I posted up there also so they can read the whole thing themselves and see the full picture. We're only giving them pieces, but if they want to read the whole thing, they can do that. And I'm going to check out that one in the state. If you can send me a link, I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Monday night, ladies and gentlemen, 5:30, 7:30, if you can go over to the Ladies Island Country Club, and that is what's the name of that restaurant? They changed that a couple times.
The old Beaufort Cafe and Eatery.
That's it. The Beaufort Cafe and Eatery, 5:30, 7:30, the Beaufort Tea Party. Is there any cost to come in?
No, we don't take dues.
Okay.
We don't take dues. We have nothing to give us for donations, which I will do to help pay for the ads and the signs.
Right.
And that will be just specifically for that. We are not incorporated. We are not a 501c3. We are just a loose association of friends. So even if someone went and asked me for an email list of what? For a group of people that are just friends and sit down once a month and talk?
I've had the pleasure of talking to your group a couple of times over the years, maybe more than that. I don't know. I consider them friends. It's not a hostile environment for anybody that doesn't know. Go check them out Monday night. There's 5:30, 7:30. And your website, again, is southernsense.net, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And your website, your podcast can be heard right here on Big Patriot Radio on Saturdays at 7:00 in the evening. Tune in from all over the world. And there's only 3 countries that we don't broadcast to. Iraq, Yemen, and the other one escapes me for the moment. But everywhere else, if you can get to a computer, you can get to your show.
Well, when I do it live on Friday between 2:30 and 4, you can see it, the video up on X and Facebook, and also on that webpage, southernsense.net, with the chat room.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Ann Ubellis, the Radio Chickadee. Once again, thank you so much for coming on. I want to let you get to your next appointment. Thank you, and let's talk again soon.
Okay. God bless.
You too.